Opterećeni istorijom, nacionalnom i verskom pripadnošću, zaglibljeni u raznorazne predrasude, još uvek trošimo silnu energiju u, reklo bi se, kvazi moralnim i moralnim raspravama. Treba li poštovati nešto što je jedno od osnovnih ljudskih prava? Svakako, za nas na Balkanu još uvek sporno pravo na seksualnu orijentaciju, na zapadu je već odavno nešto uobičajeno.
Da čujemo, a i prenesemo vam neke od njihovih iskustava, posetili smo nekoliko gradova u Sjedinjenim Američkim Državama. Bili smo u Njujorku, Los Angelesu i naravno, gde je drugo nego u Svetskom centru prava LGBT populacije u San Francisku.
Svetska metropola New York, grad sa 18 miliona stanovnika, stecište ljudi svih vera, rasa i nacija, ostaće pored ostalog upamćen kao mesto u kome se u istoriji čovečanstva desio prvi bunt LGBT populacije. Radi se o Stonewallskoj pobuni 28. juna 1969. godine, kada je oko 2000 osoba različite seksualne opredeljenosti podiglo glas protiv diskriminacije, policijske torture i predrasuda koje od njima vladaju manje više u čitavom svetu. Pobuna pokrenuta u Stonewallskoj ulici u njujorškom kvartu Greenwich Village slovi za svetski početak savremene borbe za prava LGBT populacije. Ono što će se godinu dana kasnije ponoviti u Njujorku pod nazivom Front oslobođenja gejeva širit će se najpre po gradovima Amerike, a potom i u ostatku sveta pod nazivima Parade ponosa, Pride parade, što je u suštini označavalo pokret koji je imao za cilj da u političkom smislu skrene pažnju na praksu ugrožavanja prava osoba različitih seksualnih opredeljenja. U Njujorku, istorijskom centru pokreta za prava LGBT populacije, i danas u ulici Stonewall, u baru u kome se okupljaju pripadnici gej populacije, i dalje evociraju uspomene na 28. jun 1969. godine.
Charlie and I are walking up Christopher Street and we see people lining up with banners and flags. And I asked a couple of friends of mine, where are you going? We're marching up to Central Park. I go, why? What are you, crazy? That's a long walk. And I goes, no, it's our rights to march. But Charlie and I and Frank said, my mother didn't know I was gay at the time, so I had to walk like this a little bit. I walked on the sidewalk all the way up to Central Park. It was parked cars, the march, and traffic. And as we walked up, people would turn their back, call us queer, fag, lesbian, dyke, every name in the book. They would call us as we walked. A couple of hundred people. We got to Central Park. I had no idea what I was doing there. We came back down. For years, the parade went from the village up Fifth Avenue. And everybody would come right down to the village after the parade. Well, I should tell you that the original bar is the nail salon next door. There was an arch right over here, and this side was just tables, chairs, and dancing. The entrance you came in was blocked off. The windows were painted black, the doors were painted black, and there were plywood behind it. And we came in on that side. There used to be a small hallway. That room back there wasn't there. If you went in the bathrooms on that side, you can come out on this side. When we came in, we had to sign a book because they were trying to tell the police it was a private club. Now, we all signed any name we wanted to. In those days, my name was Fenwick Fingernail. Well, if you didn't know where a gay bar was in those days, you had to be taken to one because they were all hidden. It was against the law in New York City to serve a known homosexual alcohol. And the boys in the organized crime knew that gay people had money long before Macy's, American Express, and they wanted our money. They charged us $1 to get in, which is like $10 in those days, and drinks were more money than the neighborhood bars, but they knew we would pay for it because we wanted to dance with each other.
Well, you know, it was very tough, and it has changed dramatically very fast. I came out of the closet or pronounced myself to be gay when I was 30 years old, and I was very prominent in politics then, and suddenly no one would talk to me. And people who I had made political donations, contributions to, would return them to me because they couldn't even be comfortable with me giving them money. And it was quite a shock for me. It was, I was suddenly shut out of the political process.
U LGBT centru u Njujorku, osnovanom sa ciljem da širi prava i interese osoba različitih seksualnih opredeljenja, pored ostalog bave se i arhiviranjem građe koja beleži istoriju pokreta LGBT populacije. Centar je bogat brojnim primjercima časopisa, knjiga, filmova i razne druge arhivske građe.
The archive was founded 25 years ago. We began planning it in 1989. We opened it in 1990. Because the then executive director, Richard Burns, and the board of directors thought it would be a good idea. And since that time, we have built up a collection of organizational papers, of individuals' papers, of photographs, of videotapes, of audio tapes, a wide variety of different types. That is now some 2,000 feet, 2,000 boxes worth of materials. The center, for that reason, is really responsible for a great number of organizations coming into existence because by providing the space. In addition to that, over the years, more and more, the center has done its own both social services, especially for young people, and also for transgender people, among others, and has also had a wide variety of cultural scholarly and cultural programs. The finances for the center, I'm not the expert on this, but they come from a wide variety of sources. It's important for any nonprofit organization to have more than one stream. If you're too dependent upon a major donor, if you're too dependent upon government, then you run the danger of politics changing and you're being in trouble. So indeed, in the Reagan years, when government funding for LGBT things just went right downhill because of the right-wing character of the government, many organizations had difficulty. The center was able to survive because they had also, in addition to government funding that we do get, they also had private donors, corporate donors, a wide variety of funding sources.
Po nekakvoj logici, u gradu sa dugom LGBT tradicijom, nije za očekivati da se u ovom vremenu osobe različitih seksualnih opredeljenja još uvijek suočavaju sa problemima iste prirode, zbog kojih su digli glas davne 69. godine. Predrasude i sve ono što one proizvode još uvijek su aktualne i u ovoj američkoj metropoli.
You know, when I grew up, I wasn't allowed to get married. My best friend committed suicide because he was gay. And my father announced to my whole family that his family was better off with him dead because of the shame he would bring. It was against the law for me to adopt children. If you had children and you were LGBT, they would take them away from you back in the 70s and the 80s. The police used to raid dinner parties. I would have a dinner party and the police would raid it.
When we began, even in a liberal space such as New York City, it was not uncommon for us to be beaten up. It was people at first, for example, police departments and even liberal politicians, at first simply thought we were funny, until we were persistent. And the strategy of the gay movement, the primary strategy has always been just to have people come out and publicly be who they are. I've been lucky. I've been beaten up once or twice by police during a demonstration many years ago. But aside from that, no, I have not. I've had name calling, that sort of thing. In terms of things like job discrimination or housing discrimination, I have no way of knowing, actually, because I have been out publicly since about 1970.
Another really big issue that's not unrelated to that is the issue of identity documents. Unlike in most European countries, for example, the U.S. has no national ID card, but we have state ID. We tend to use driver's licenses as identification. Of course, if you travel abroad, you have to have a passport. Most Americans, because of the nature of our decentralized system, have 5 or 6 or more different types of ID that's issued by government agencies, federal, state, and local. Well, for most people, that's not necessarily a difficulty, but if you live in a gender identity that doesn't match your ID, your government-issued identity documents, that can be a serious problem. Birth certificates are the biggest challenge. There's been a change in terms of requirements for passports issued by the U.S. Passport Bureau. The Social Security Administration has made some positive changes, but it is still very much a challenge for transgender people to get their government-issued ID changed to reflect their gender identity and presentation.
The idea is never to give up on who you are and how you would like to see the world be. The idea is never to hate. I have found in my struggle, listen, I have every reason to hate. People wanted to put tattoos on me. They wouldn't come into my house. They served me on paper plates. They beat me. I was on crutches for 3 years from a beating. I've been to jail. I've been to prison for my beliefs. But I've never hated, because then that made me like them.
Da su problemi gej populacije i dalje aktualni u Njujorku dokazi i postojanje centra koji okuplja maloletne gej osobe koje su roditelji odbacili. Sem hrane i smeštaja, u Centru za svoje štićenike upravo organizuje i radionice, koje imaju za cilj da normalizuju život odbačenih i pruže im šansu da pronađu svoje mesto u društvu.
The Ali Forney Center is the largest organization in the United States and really in the whole world dedicated to homeless LGBT youth. And we provide a large program where we are able to provide housing and a variety of supportive services to help homeless LGBT youth get off the streets and to rebuild their lives. Many LGBT young people are rejected by their families and are driven to the streets. And we see our mission as both protecting them and helping them be safe, but also helping them to rebuild their lives and escape homelessness. Homeless LGBT youth are being rejected by their families because they're LGBT, because they're gay, bisexual, transgender. And the root of the conflict that we see more often than anything else is the religious beliefs of the parents. Most of our kids are being rejected from the homes of conservative religious parents. So that's what we see as being the bigger cause than anything else. We have 2 housing programs. We have an emergency housing program that's open to any homeless LGBT youth between the ages of 16 and 24, where they can stay for several months. And then we have a longer-term transitional housing program for our young people who are trying to get ready to live independently. And so in that program they can live for up to 2 years, and we help them get jobs and get into school so that they'll have the skills that they need to live on their own when they age out of our program. This room is our art therapy room. So one of the ways in which we try to help young people connect to their emotions and look at what they've gone through is through their own creativity, through their own artistic processes. So we have art therapists who work with the young people to, in a sort of a non-traditional way, help them to engage in a therapeutic process and in a healing process by expressing who they are and what they've gone through art. And so this is a room where a lot of that art therapy happens.
Ekonomski i finansijski centar države Kalifornija na zapadnoj obali je grad San Francisco, koji važi za jedan od najnaseljenijih u Sjedinjenim Američkim Državama. Sa širom okolinom broji oko 8 miliona stanovnika. Zlatna groznica, aktuelna između 2 svetska rata, dovela je u ovaj deo Kalifornije pustolove iz mnogih delova sveta. Među najbrojnijim doseljenicima su kineski radnici koji su radili na izgradnji pacifičke pruge koja je luku San Francisco povezala sa svim delovima Sjedinjenih Američkih Država. Gradska luka je itekako zaslužna što je San Francisco u kratkom periodu doživeo svojevrstan ekonomski bum. Luka je u istoriji ovog grada važna jer su tokom Drugog svjetskog rata američki vojnici ovdje isplovljavali na Pacifički front. Oni za koje se na ratištu utvrdilo da su skloni homoseksualizmu, vraćani su brodovima u San Francisco. Taj podatak je svakako bitno povezan sa činjenicom da će grad nešto kasnije biti ikona LGBT populacije. Grad koji je odmah posle Njujorka organizovao paradu koja od 1972. godine okuplja milione homo i transseksualaca i onih koji ih podržavaju. Prva svetska organizacija za zaštitu prava lezbijki, prvi gej na javnoj funkciji, prvi transvestit u vojnoj i političkoj službi, jedan od najstarijih, ali svakako najbrojniji Pride, ono je zbog čega se između ostalog San Francisco često pominje u medijima, grad na severu Kalifornije i svetski centar liberalnih aktivista. Vredi zbog toga čuti priču o zapadnjačkom poimanju ljudskih prava i seksualnih sloboda od sagovornika ovdje u San Francisco.
So we may bring a case on behalf of someone who was fired and say that being fired because you are gay is illegal to help that person get some kind of damages or recognition and for the employer to change their policies and practices as well as to create some law saying that it is illegal to fire people because of their sexual orientation. We represented an athlete who was an African-American lesbian woman who had been kicked off the team and basically because of her sexual orientation and also her race. And so we sued the university, seeing that it was unlawful for them to have discriminated against her, taking away her scholarship and her ability to be on the team and in the school just because she had come out about her sexual orientation and because there was also aspects of racial discrimination involved as well. And we're successfully able to get the university to change their policies that they needed to take steps to prevent this from happening to other athletes.
Jedan od podataka po kome je San Francisco poznat u svijetu LGBT-a je i činjenica da je zastava Duginih Boja, kao simbol seksualnih sloboda, kreirana upravo ovdje, u Castro distriktu, poznatom kao gej naselje.
U Castru se nalazi najveća gej zastava u Sjedinjenim Američkim Državama. Njeno postavljanje koštalo je $750.000. U Castru su čak i pešački prelazi u Duginim Bojama.
Ulica je prepoznatljiva i po brojnim gej barovima, u kojima nije teško pronaći sagovornika.
Kafić Twin Peaks u Castru, gde se sada nalazimo, je prvi gej bar koji je otvoren ikada u svetu. Do tada svi pripadnici LGBT populacije morali su da se okupljaju na raznim mjestima, uključujući čak i podrume zgrada.
Actually, the Castro used to be called Eureka Valley because we have a mountain called Eureka, Mount Eureka, and then there's another one called Noe, Mount Noe. Most San Franciscans don't even know this. But this valley was called Eureka Valley, and it was originally an Irish neighborhood. So a lot of the Irish immigrants used to live here. Back in the 30s, the city brought transportation to the neighborhood, which opened it up to the rest of the city as we developed and kept moving away from the downtown. Just about that time, World War II ended, and a lot of the guys that were let go from the army, because we didn't need them to be soldiers anymore, got released here in San Francisco, and a lot of the gay ones said, wow, there's some really beautiful homes here. They're not expensive, they had money, and so they bought homes here, and they created this neighborhood, and then they named it after Castro, Jose Castro, who was a general for the Mexican army and who fought for independence, and so they thought it was fitting that they named their neighborhood after someone fighting for independence because they were just about ready to start to do so as well. And so a lot of them came here, they bought the homes, they fixed them up, and they turned this place into a magnificent new neighborhood that became the hub of the gay community for the world, really. We're kind of the capital of the gay community in the world, and it all started right here. Then Stonewall happened in the 70s, the end of the 70s. We had our issues in San Francisco during that time with the police because we were illegal. I am a past president of the Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce here in San Francisco. It's the oldest institution for our business community. I'm also currently an officiate, so I marry people, gay, straight, doesn't matter. It's all legal and it's secular. It's not religious at all. So it could be a Muslim bride and a Christian husband. It could be Jewish and atheist. It could be Buddhist and Hindu. It doesn't matter. If it's legal in the eyes of the state, I'm allowed to marry them. So that's what I do. I've been an advocate of my community since I came out at the age of 14, so it's been quite a while. I was never in the closet, as they say, so I'm as out as you can get. Everybody knows I'm gay. I'm totally comfortable with it. I have no problem, and if anybody gives me any trouble, I look them in the eye and I say, I'm sorry, I'm an American citizen and I'm gay. What's your problem? You know, I've always said that the best way for us to gain our rights is for us to do so one-to-one. Because when you talk about homosexuality or you talk about being gay as a concept, a lot of people are afraid. But when the person cutting your hair, or the person fixing your house, or the person painting your walls, or the person that's teaching your child is a gay person, all of a sudden you realize they're no different than you are. And we bleed like you do, we cry like you do, we die like you do, we suffer like you do. The bottom line is, we're human beings. We have the right to be happy. And whatever makes you happy, as long as it doesn't hurt somebody else, that's fine. If you tell me that this person is forcing someone to be straight or gay or whatever, then I'm against that person, whatever they are, because they're forcing someone to do something against their will. But if it's two people that want to do it together, who am I to say differently? That's not my job.
Da aktivizam LGBT populacije u San Francisku ima dugu tradiciju, da se aktivisti bave brojnim poslovima, dokaz je pored ostalog i call centar, namenjen svima onima koji zbog različite seksualne orijentacije imaju bilo kakav problem.
We get a lot of calls from people in their teens who are just starting to come out and aren't sure what to do with those feelings and don't know who to talk to about them. So we're able to help them to start to try to create a safe space on the phone for them to start to talk about these feelings that they've been bottling up inside for a long time. And so that's a large part of what we do. We also get calls from people who are transgender, who are questioning their gender identity, and again, often don't have anyone they feel safe talking to, often don't even have a word to put to their feelings, and they've been struggling with that for a long time, so we're able to help them with that. All of our volunteers come from our community, so all of our volunteers are either gay, lesbian, bisexual, or transgender. We do, and we do that by compiling what's become the largest resource database of its kind in our country. We have over 15,000 resources. So what we're able to do is when people call, we can check and let them know if there is a social group or a support group. Many of our callers don't even know that there may be something near them that exists. And what we also find is that when people call us, because it's often that very first step that they're taking, they may not be ready yet to go somewhere and talk to someone face to face. So we're kind of that big step that they're taking. And we'll let them know that when they're ready, we can let them know about local resources. So we do help kind of create that community among our callers. I think for those people that are afraid to call and are nervous, what I would tell them is not to give up on themselves, and to feel safe in reaching out, because there are people that are there to help.
Podaci govore da se LGBT populacija, osim diskriminacije, posljednjih godina suočava sa problemima zdravstvene prirode. Samo u Sjedinjenim Američkim Državama tokom godine od SIDA oboli oko 50.000 ljudi. Prevencija je jedan od najvažnijih zadataka AIDS fondacije. crkve funkcioniše u San Francisco.
San Francisco AIDS Foundation is one of the oldest AIDS service organizations in the United States. We do comprehensive HIV testing, STI treatment. We have a whole portfolio of counseling programs for people with mental health issues, substance use issues, people who may be in crisis. We have a whole housing program. We work with at the intersection of the epidemic to ensure that people who are HIV positive get linked to care and stay in care, and people who are HIV negative can undertake the measures that they want to take and use the tools that they want to use to remain HIV negative. So the San Francisco AIDS Foundation has about 150 employees and about a $30 million a year budget. As you may know, San Francisco was the first city where HIV became an epidemic. It was on the streets of San Francisco where we had the highest mortality rates in the early days of the epidemic. And so we take very seriously the role that we have as a model. The San Francisco model of care has been replicated around the world. We're a large organization and we have a large population of people who are HIV positive. We have somewhere between 16,000 and 17,000 people in San Francisco living with HIV. And yet the incredible positive story is that in 2014, we saw only 302 new infections in San Francisco. So 16,000 to 17,000 positive people and only 302 new infections. Now that's 302 too many, but that number is continuing to go further and further down. And we're optimistic that San Francisco will be the first city that ends HIV transmission. And that's powerful because we were also the first city where HIV was an epidemic.
The World Health Organization has now recommended that anyone newly diagnosed with HIV be offered and have availability to start antiretroviral therapy, to start attacking the virus with effective drugs. That's been a battle of many, many years in terms of availability of HIV medications. They were only available to people when they got sick, when they had lower T cells, but now the World Health Organization for the first time is saying anyone newly diagnosed with HIV have access to care.
O prvom lesbe centru u svetu osnovanom u ovom gradu, o pravnoj pomoći koju pruža korisnicima i još uvek aktualnim problemima pripadnika LGBT populacije u gradu koji važi za centar liberalnog aktivizma u svetu u minutima koji slede.
Often in same-sex couples or transgender parents where there is a parent who is not biologically related to their child and is facing some kind of challenge or lack of recognition that they have a right to parent their child or to have custody of their child. So it's a big area. Also custody cases where you have a biological parent who's LGBT and the court is saying that they shouldn't have custody of their child because of their sexual orientation or gender identity. And in the youth area, we do cases where transgender youth, for instance, aren't able to use bathrooms or locker rooms that match their gender identity. Cases trying to seek medical care for transgender youth or adults who want to get transition-related care, either because of discrimination from medical providers or because insurance isn't covering.
Yeah, I mean, the U.S. has come a long ways, right? I mean, from Stonewall all the way up to marriage equality. And really what we need to remember is that trans folks have been on the forefront of many of those struggles. And what we see now really is a normativizing technology called marriage that is seeking to sort of make LGBT-ness more palatable to, heteronormative people. And so while I am glad for marriage equality because anyone who wants to get married should be able to get married, what we need to remember is that there are still people dying on the streets and that our community, as varied and diverse as it is, still is deeply struggling with poverty and access to health care and access to medicine. And also, trans women of color are being killed at a rate that we just cannot stop. And so, on the one hand, we need to celebrate the policy changes and whatnot. But even in the state of California, if I walk into a men's restroom, I could be ticketed. And so we might have marriage equality, but the real sort of practical day-to-day life for a trans person or a genderqueer person is still very much threatened. And so I don't want to celebrate too quickly, is what I'm saying. I maintain a sort of healthy suspicion around the policies that have been passed.
The most important thing that happened was I made friends, other friends who were gay. You know, then you would share your stories about families or religion or where, and you know, we became another kind of family, an extended family. And I also pursued, because you weren't criminalized that much, I also pursued a career in teaching. And as you know, teaching can become a very controversial issue if people are homophobic. And so there were times during my teaching career when that homophobia would manifest itself into a ballot measure, banning gay teachers, or my own school district not having non-discrimination policy. So the two things gelled. That sense of community that was here, that led to people looking at politics and who they elected. And we also knew that other parts of the country, more liberal, coastal usually more liberal, that New York had a very, very big out LGBT community. You know, we were growing. And then when we went for changes in laws that would protect civil rights for LGBT people, sometimes they succeeded, sometimes they did not, sometimes they succeeded and then got repealed, but that only made people stronger.
Još jedan kalifornijski grad, smešten na obali Tihog okeana, često se pominje u kontekstu LGBT populacije i njihove svakodnevice. Ipak, Los Angeles je u svakom slučaju mnogo poznatiji kao centar svetske filmske industrije, na čijoj periferiji je smešten Hollywood. Grad u kome se nalaze i mnogi u svijetu cenjene visokoškolske ustanove. Grad značajnih privrednih giganata koji ga svrstavaju u vrh svetskih privrednih čuda. Beverly Hills, Santa Monica i još neka predgrađa čine Los Angeles jednim od najpoželjnijih turističkih destinacija Sjedinjenih Američkih Država. U gradu brojnih različitosti, verskih, etničkih i rasnih, živi priličan broj osoba različitog seksualnog opredeljenja. Los Angeles nije ksenofobična sredina, kakvih i tekako ima u ostatku sveta, ali ni činjenica da se radi o gradu otvorenom za različitosti ne znači da se homo i transseksualci u ovom gradu ne suočavaju sa predrasudama i diskriminacijom.
And I remember one time I was actually working pretty close to this area, so we're right now in the Olympic division. I used to work Wilshire, which is one of the divisions next to this. And I had a partner who was older, and he had we'd worked a couple nights together, and he was kind of quiet. And he knew I was pretty much, you know, I was telling him about my girlfriend and things like that. And after a while, we had done a couple radio calls, like, you know, domestic violence, there's a lot of different calls. And he finally turned to me and said, you know, you're not like the other ones. And I was like, what do you mean by that? And he was like, well, you know, a lot of the lesbians that I work with, they have something to prove. And, you know, he had his own stereotypes of partners and, you know, things that he'd seen in the past that kind of gave him this kind of prejudice while I serve in the LAPD. I mean, there's still, you know, some different, you know, some people have different opinions, but we're protected by laws within the city and the state of California. And I think that's what makes it incredible. You know, there's been a lot of change within the United States with regard to gay rights, you know, whether it's the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell, gay marriage, you know, so there are a lot of things that have made it a lot easier to be gay or lesbian or trans in law enforcement, and specifically LAPD. I think with any sort of change, sometimes it has to come with the younger generations. You know, now more and more youth are exposed to the LGBT community, and for me, that helps with whatever we do. You know, the more people who are out the more people who know, like if you know that your sister or your brother or your friend or your uncle or cousin is gay or lesbian or trans, the more likely you can see them as a person and as a human being.
U gradu na obali Tihog okeana postoji arhivski centar u kome se čuvaju dokumenti, filmovi, časopisi i svaki zapisani tekst koji se bavi problematikom LGBT populacije.
Everything has come through the community. And when I say the community, we have collections from Paris. We have collections from all over in which people will either mail things into us or will drop things off or will arrange for the transfer here. And basically all they're doing is giving us the materials. Now sometimes they're their own materials. Sometimes they're the materials of someone that has passed away. Recently we had someone visit from Florida. And basically what has happened is a friend of his had passed away. This family was straight. They just happened to know a gay man. And they said this in his will, he had expressed a desire for the materials to be transferred to us. And he made sure that happened. So that's one of the basic ways things happen. A lot of times people want to hold on to things because they're very personal. Diaries, photographs. You want to look back at them. And you want to experience them and share them with your friends. So you don't necessarily want to give them away. But we have found that what happens sometimes is when people do that, we lose them. Because what happens is somebody comes in and says, oh, nobody's going to care about this, and they just throw the materials away.
Nalazimo se u Los Angelesu, na mestu gdje se nalazi jedan od najpoznatijih LGBT časopisa u Sjedinjenim Američkim Državama, Advokat. Prvi broj časopisa je izašao 1967. godine i cena je bila samo 25 centi.
I've only been here for about 3 years, so I think there was without a doubt a preponderance of important stories that this magazine covered before I got here that helped shift the balance, particularly because we're based here in California. Proposition 8 was a really big deal here in California that rescinded marriage equality by popular vote. So the people of California voted to take away same-sex couples' right to marry. That was the same election during which Barack Obama was elected. So it was a really conflicted feeling for us here in California. We did a lot of coverage around that. We had staffers who, on the day of that election, went and protested down at the Mormon Temple because the Mormon Church was very involved in fundraising and gathering support for the proposition that took away our right to marry. It took 5 years to get it back and a fight all the way to the Supreme Court, which was ultimately one of the cases that was decided last year, or in 2013, I'm sorry, that they decided that Proposition 8 was unconstitutional and that the Federal Defense of Marriage Act was unconstitutional. And then, obviously, this June, we finally got our marriage cases before the Supreme Court, and they decided overwhelmingly that we have a constitutional right to marry someone of the same sex.
Obilazeći New York, Los Angeles i San Francisco, pokušali smo da vam prenesemo neka od iskustava sa kojima su se LGBT osobe kroz istoriju susretale i sa kojima, reklo bi se, gotovo naviknuti žive. To što su pre 50 godina u Americi javno podigli glas u zaštitu svojih prava ne znači da borba za seksualnu raznolikost nije u pojedinačnom smislu bila aktualna kroz vekove. Stonewallska pobuna je u istorijskom smislu tek zvaničan početak rušenja tabua i predrasuda o ovoj problematici. Pobuna za prava LGBT populacije širi se tokom proteklih decenija sa američkog kontinenta na druge delove sveta, sa manjim ili većim uspehom. U Americi su u međuvremenu na tom polju postignuti značajni rezultati. Istopolni brakovi se ozakonjuju u najvećem broju država. Od nekada politički motivisanih okupljanja aktivista, Prideovi su u ovom delu sveta postali uobičajen dekor sa preovlađujućim elementima zabave i maskembala. A da su i u Americi još uvek u izvesnoj meri aktualni problemi sa kojima se suočavaju pripadnici LGBT populacije, dokaz su brojne asocijacije, klubovi, savjetovališta čiji je zadatak da pomažući pojedincima pomeraju granice razumevanja i prihvatanja prava na različitost.
Bez namere da bilo koga ili bilo šta popularizujemo, hteli smo samo da se zapitamo koliko je zapravo vremena potrebno da se suočimo sa činjenicom da je pravo na raznolikost bilo koje vrste nešto što bismo trebali da poštujemo kao i sva ostala ljudska prava.